For our next project, we will be creating a crayon batik mandala. The first thing that we will need is a 14 by 14 inch piece of drawing paper. Just like our mini mandala, we have to first create the base. The first step is creating the axis. Our axis has to be laid out where the center point falls exactly in the center of our paper. Since our paper is 14 inches by 14 inches, that means we will measure over halfway, which would be 7 inches. Since my paper is 14 inches and my ruler is only 12 inches, this means that my ruler will not stretch all the way across the paper. So when I measured from the edge over 7 inches, I did this 3 times, giving myself 3 reference points to ensure that my line ended up nice and straight and exactly where it needed to be. I've now turned my paper the other way so that I can create the other line of my axis. You can see the circles where I've circled the little reference points, one at the top, one at the bottom, and one towards the middle. This way, I can line all of these marks up, creating one long, straight, even line. My axis is now complete and I'm ready for the next step. Next, we will need to divide the quadrants into equal 20-degree increments. You will take your protractor and you will line it up on your axis and start dividing the quadrants by every 20 degrees. Here you can see that I have marked every 20 degrees in every quadrant. Now you will need to connect your markings. Make sure that your lines go all the way to the edge of your paper and that they are also crossing through the center point. Look at the line that my pencil is pointing at. This line will actually need to be erased. When we divided the quadrants into 20-degree increments, we actually have one section that is made of 10 degrees from one quadrant and 10 degrees of another. This line will need to be erased to make it a 20-degree increment just like the others. Here you can see that I have erased that line, the vertical line of our axis. This will now allow that section to be equal to all the other sections within our layout. I now have all of my markings connecting, going through my center point. I've erased the line that was the vertical line of our axis so that all of my sections are equal. They should all measure 20 degrees now. Now we go on to creating our concentric circles on our layout. You will need to create at least 5 concentric circles using a compass. Here you can see that I have drawn out all 5 of my concentric circles using my compass. Once your layout is complete, you will then go in and create your designs in pencil. Once your design is complete, you will want to go in and erase any unnecessary lines that are left from your layout. A lot of these will be along the outer edge. The next step will be to trace all of your pencil lines in Sharpie. Once you have finished tracing over in Sharpie, you'll want to go back and erase any pencil lines that are left over. Now it is time to add color, and we are going to do this with crayon. Here is a design that has been completely colored in with crayon. When using the crayon to color in your design, you need to press firmly, coloring very solidly. You cannot shade lightly, you cannot leave any white of the paper showing. If you want white among your design, it has to be colored in with white crayon. In order to do the batik effect, the paper has to be entirely coated in wax from the crayon. Now it is time to produce the batik effect on your design. Here is a completed design that is ready for the first step of the batik process. Now, before you see what we are about to do, I must warn you, the first step can be a little scary, but don't worry, don't be frightened. I promise that the results are well worth it. So here is the first step. You will crinkle your paper up into a ball and squeeze it tightly, creating creases among the paper, which will also crack the wax of the crayon. Lay your paper out flat, turn it a different way, crinkle it up into a ball again, squeeze it tightly, creating more creases. Then you'll want to lay it flat and smooth it out. So this next step can be a little frightening as well. We're going to take black acrylic paint and squirt some right on top of our project. And then we're going to take a brush and brush that paint out. So you can see I am coating the entire surface with the black acrylic paint. I'm moving very quickly because in the process I do not want the paint to dry before the next step. So you can see that I am almost finished. I'm going back and making sure that everything is coated with paint. And when you do this, you can see that it's very messy, so you want to make sure that you have something underneath your project so that you're not getting paint all over the table. So now I'm taking my project and I'm laying it down in the sink and I'm turning the water on so that's running very lightly. I don't want to turn it on full force because then I'll have black paint splashing everywhere. So I'm just going to lay my paper in the sink, let the water run on it, and very gently with my hands rub that paint around and rinse my paper. You want to pick it up every so often and rinse it off. So every once in a while I'll turn my paper around and I'm going to continue to rub that paint off. Again, you want to be careful with your paper because the paper is wet now, and we know that wet paper can tear more easily than dry paper. So be very gentle as you're picking it up, rinsing it off, as you're rubbing your hand around and rubbing that paint off. So now I'll go back and I will make sure that there aren't any really dark spots where there is an abundance of paint left. I'll just kind of lightly brush over the entire thing and keep rinsing it till I see that all of the paint is pretty much removed. So now that a majority of the paint is gone, you want to give your project one quick little rinse and rub any areas that you see that there's excess paint, and then you're going to take it over to start drying it. Before you start rinsing your project, you want to make sure that you have some paper towels laid out on your table. This way you can lay your project on the paper towels, which will help absorb some of the moisture out of your paper and will also keep your wet paper from sticking to the table. So now you'll lay your project on the paper towels. Any of those little rips or tears that you see, you want to make sure that they are laid out and pressed flat. And then you want to take some paper towels and just dab them on the top of your project. So you're just picking up that moisture. So again, you're just dabbing the paper. You're not wiping it because that causes stress to your wet paper, which could cause tears. So you want to take your project now to the drying rack. If this red bar is down, grab a teacher so that we can help you position that in the right place so that you can get into the drying rack. And you want to start layering projects from the bottom. So the very last thing that you want to do is press firmly down on your project against the paper towels, and that will help remove any last little bit of moisture that you can, and then lay it flat in the drying rack to dry. Be sure to put another layer of the rack down on top of your project so that it is ready for the next person. And here is the completed product, a mandala design with a crayon batik effect.